Hi students, welcome to Chapter 10, Lesson 3. The topic of today's lesson is surface area of rectangular prisms. And I made area in all capital letters, so I'm hoping that you remember the big idea when you see the word area, what you should think of, and that word is squares. When you see the word area, you are counting squares. So I'm actually just going to put a little square right above that word area to show me that I am counting squares in today's lesson. All right, let's get started by drawing a rectangular prism. So carefully follow my directions and come down on your paper. Again, if you want to use grid paper to help you out, you sure can. But come down, let's say 5 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. And somewhere in the middle here, I'm going to draw a line that is 4 units across. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And then I'm going to come up 2 squares on the side, both sides, and then I'm going to connect. Okay, so I've got a rectangle there that's 4 units by 2 units. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up 2 units and over 2 units from this corner. So I'm going to go up 2, over 2, and I'm just going to put a point right there. I'm going to put a point right there. And I'm going to do the same thing from this corner. Up 2, over 2. And I'm going to put a point right there. And then I'm going to connect those 2 points. Okay, so it should look like that. Then I'm going to start in this bottom corner and I'm going to go up 2, over 2, and I'm going to put a point right here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is connect this line right here. I'm going to draw this line, this diagonal. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to connect this diagonal, this corner, just like that. Next, I'm going to connect this corner and this dot. And then finally, I'm going to draw that. Okay, so there is a rectangular prism. And I'm going to label this, I'm going to call the length. And that's 4 units. This dimension right here, I'm going to call the width. And the width is 3 units. And the height of this rectangular prism, how tall it is the height. And I'm going to say that that's 2. So there is our rectangular prism. Now, I know you explored a little bit with surface area in the lab before this lesson. So I want to actually show you this object built. It's 4 units across this way, it's 2 units tall, and it's 3 units this way. So this is a model with those same dimensions that you see right here. Okay, if I kind of tilt it like this, it looks a little similar to the one right here. However, this, what you see here, are cubes. And how many cubes does it take to build this? I would count the area of the bottom, 4 times 3, so it takes 12 cubes to make this layer. And there's 2 layers, so this takes 24 cubes to build it. 4 times 3 times 2. So this takes 24 cubes. That's volume. That is not what we're working on today. We are looking at surface area, which you did a little bit with the lab yesterday. What I want to look at is this. If I were to unfold that prism, this is what it would look like. Actually, let me go back and add some color here so it matches up. Okay, this, we're going to make this yellow. that we're going to make yellow. I'm going to make the top of this prism pink. And the side I'm going to make orange. So what you see on your notes matches this. This is, if I fold this up, these are flat squares, and I can make that prism just by folding. This would fold down to create the top. This orange is going to be the side. This yellow folds around to make the back. And then this pink side folds up to make the bottom. So now you can see, just by folding, I've created a 3D figure. Okay, so how much paper did it take to make that figure? This is what we're counting today. Squares. These are flat squares. I am not counting cubes. Biggest mistake kids make is confusing area and volume. We are counting up all these squares. How many squares does it take to make this flat pattern? So I'm going to teach you two different surface area formulas, and you get to decide which one you like better. You can use either one, okay? But it's important that you do use a formula. So over here we're going to write surface area formula. Surface area formulas. So there's always going to be 6 sides to a rectangular prism. A box has a front and a back, a top and a bottom. So this is, if I see this yellow as the front, there's another yellow in the back. There's a top, this pink matches the bottom, which you can't see, another pink on the bottom. And then there's a side, this orange side, and then there's an invisible side you can't see over here, another orange side. So that's one way to use to create a surface area formula, is to list all the faces involved. So there's always going to be a front that matches with the back. There is always going to be a top which is identical to the bottom. And then there are always going to be 2 sides. Okay, and if I go back to this, here they are. There's a yellow, that's the front. Here's the back, top, bottom, side, orange side, and the orange other side. So this is one, most 6th graders like this formula better. They just like listing out the sides, I find. So look at the front, and I want to find the area of the front rectangle. Well, this is a 4 and this is a 2. So the area of the front is 4 times 2, which is 8. I don't have to do any work on the back. I know that it's identical, so I can just write 8. Now I'm going to look at the top. This top rectangle, how do I find the area of the top? It's going to be this dimension, which is 4, multiplied by this dimension. This rectangle has 2 dimensions. I need to multiply 4 times 3. So it takes me 12 squares to make the top. I don't have to do any work on the bottom. I just have to copy that same number because the bottom is identical to the top. Finally, the side. This dimension multiplied by this dimension. So this is a 2 and this is a 3. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 2 and I get 6. The other side is automatically a 6. So finally, the last thing we need to do to figure out how many total squares it takes to make this prism is total these up or add. So using your calculator or mental math, 8 and 12 together make a 20. So here's 20, another 20, that's 40. 6 and 6 is 12. Combining all that, I get 52 units squared. So that is one option, one formula option, just to list front, back, top, bottom, side, side, total it all up. Okay, that's choice 1. Let's see. Get a different color marker here to separate these. So this is one formula that you may use. I'm going to draw a line right here that separates the other formula. The other formula that you can choose to use is this. Actually, I'm going to add some more color here. I'm going to say the front and the back, those were the yellow sides, so I'm going to make these yellow. The top and the bottom was pink. Adding color can help your thinking. You're welcome to use color as you work as well, always. Side and side. So it matches our model here. Okay, the other formula that you can use looks like this. 2 LHs plus 2 LWs plus 2 HWs. So these are the same, and now let me explain how this is really the same thing as this. L times H, here's the L, here's the H. So L times H is this face of the prism. It's the front, it's yellow. 4 times 2 is 8. That's the L times H. Times 2, remember that these are all being multiplied, variables and letters with nothing in between them. This is 2 times L times H plus 2 times L times W plus 2 times H times W. All the multiplying comes first, adding is last. So this right here, L times H, is actually the front. Okay? And it's times 2 because there's a back. So that's how this matches up with this yellow on that formula. So I would put in the numbers. H is a 4, or L is a 4, and H is a 2. So my next line would look like this. These are all being multiplied. So 2 times 4 times 2 plus length times width. Well, this is the length right here. Same line as this. And the width is this. This line is the same as this. So length times width is actually the pink. It's the top and the bottom. So the length is 4 and the width is 3. So I'm going to plug in those amounts. The length is 4 and the width is 3. And finally, 2 times height W, HW. Height times width times 2. That is the orange side. The height is 2 and the width is 3. So that H times W is the orange side times 2 because there are 2 sides. So 2 and the height is 2 and the width is 3. Again, most 6th graders like this version better, but if you follow that better, you're more than welcome to use it. Here's how they match up. That is the same thing as the yellow in this formula. This was the same thing as the pink. And 2HW, you got it. It's the same thing as the orange. So now I would use order of operations to solve all this. I'm going to multiply first. 2 times 4 is 8, times 2 is 16, plus 2 times 4 is 8, times 3 makes 24, plus 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 3 is 12. So these turn into 16 plus 24 plus 12. 16 and 24 combined makes 40, plus 12, I wind up with 52 units squared. So you can see I got the exact same answer. So you decide which formula you like better. Do you want to list out front, back, top, bottom, side, side? Or do you want to use this formula with 2 times L times H plus 2 times L times W plus 2 times H times W? Same thing, just different version. All right. One more drawing we're going to make. Before we do that drawing, today's hidden treasure. The hidden treasure for today is to explain the 4 inequality symbols that you have learned. You've learned 4 of them. What are those 4 symbols, and what do they mean? What do they represent? So that's today's hidden treasure, inequality symbols. I'll give you a hint. Here's one of them. Okay, next, you did this in the lab, but a net, I want you to write a vocabulary word, net or flat pattern. These are the same thing. And to explain what a net or a flat pattern is, we're going to make a drawing. But it's actually this. This is called a net or a flat pattern. It's a flat, 2-dimensional figure that just by folding you can create a closed 3D figure. So this thing that I made, if I fold it up carefully, I can make a 3D figure just by folding. So this is called a flat pattern. Right now it's a flat pattern or a net, and just by folding I can make it into a 3D figure. That is a net or a flat pattern. So let's make an example of a net. So I'm going to start by making a 3x2 rectangle. That's then I'm going to make on this side a 2x2, and on the top I'm going to make another 3x2. Down here I'm going to make another 3x2. Over here I'm going to make a 2x2 and then another 3x2. So it looks like that. This is a net. If I were to cut this out just by folding, I could make it into a 3D closed figure. And a lot of times today, either you're going to have a figure that looks like this, it's 3D form, or it's 2D form. Well, you'd need to be able to find the surface area if it looks like this or like this. Okay, but those are really the same thing, right? If I were to fold this all up, this would match up with this. Okay, this face would be opposite this one. And so now let's label some dimensions on this and talk about it. You only need 3 dimensions. This line right here we could say is 4.7. This line right here, from here to here, from here to here is 1.5. And finally, this dimension right here is a 2.8. You need to be able to find the surface area given a figure like this as well. Again, formula, you get to decide, but you've got to show the formula. Formula work units. Look at the yellow rectangle. Well, it's 4.7, and I don't see this, it's not labeled. But if you were to fold this up, this side would match this one. So to find the area of the yellow, I would do 4.7 times 1.5. Pink, I know this amount, and if I were to fold it all up, this 4.7 would be the same as that 4.7. So sometimes you've got to do some thinking about, well, what lines match up? All you need are 3 dimensions. You need the length, the width, and the height. And finally, the orange face, this is a 1.5, and this line is the same as this line. So to calculate the area of the orange, I would do 1.5 times 2.8. I could use these numbers into this formula or this one. Okay, but today you're practicing finding surface area. How many squares, not cubes, squares. How many squares does it take to make a net or a flat pattern. And your figures might look like this. They might be 3D version or they might be 2D version. Okay, that wraps up lesson 3. I will see you again soon for lesson 4.